The arena had emptied, leaving only echoes of cheers and whispers, but Lyra remained in the center, her sword still humming faintly in her hand. Cale had vanished into the shadows of the city, but his words lingered in her mind. The runes are not mere tools. They respond to those who can understand them, to those who can lead. Lyra clenched the hilt tighter. She had always trained for duels, for victory, for honor, but never for understanding the pulse of energy that now flowed through her blade. She knew her journey was just beginning. The sword had awakened something within her, something beyond skill and strength. The next morning, Lyra made her way through the crowded streets of Zarathus. The floating city was alive with movement. Merchants floated their wares on levitating platforms, traders haggled over exotic goods from distant worlds, and citizens hurried along suspended walkways, eyes wide with curiosity at the young warrior who had wounded Cale. Holographic screens displayed her image repeatedly, praising her skill and bravery. She entered the Library of Light, a massive tower of glass and steel that spiraled into the sky. The air inside was cool, filled with the hum of knowledge and the faint scent of old star maps. Lyra approached a holographic archivist, a shimmering figure with countless layers of data floating around its form. "I seek knowledge of my sword," Lyra said. "The runes. They respond to me, but I do not understand why." The archivist's form shifted, scanning her presence. "Your weapon is part of the Aranthian Forge, created centuries ago by a civilization now extinct. These runes are not decorative, they carry energy that responds to emotion, courage, and intent. Only one with a true heart and disciplined mind can awaken their full potential." Lyra listened, absorbing every word. "And Cale?" she asked. "His sword. It was similar. How is that possible?" "The Aranthians often created twin weapons, meant to test or guide those who might inherit their power. Your duel was no accident. It was part of a greater design, to reveal potential and prepare you for the challenges to come." Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. She had believed her journey was about personal honor. Now it seemed it was about something far greater, something that could touch the fate of worlds. Days passed, and Lyra trained in secret. She practiced dueling with holographic opponents, running drills that tested her agility, reflexes, and strategy. Each time she swung her sword, the runes responded to her intent, flashing brightly when she moved with purpose and dimming when her focus faltered. Kyle, she knew, was not far. Rumors whispered through the city that he watched her from the shadows, evaluating her skill. He had not attacked her again, but his presence was a constant reminder that her journey would not be easy. One evening, as the twin moons of Aurelia cast silver light over the floating city, Lyra felt a sudden disturbance. The runes on her sword flared unexpectedly, and a soft hum filled the air. She looked up to see Cale stepping from the shadows, his sword drawn but his posture calm. "You have grown," he said, voice low but carrying a quiet strength. "The runes respond more now than before. You understand them better than most ever will." Lyra did not lower her sword.
"Why are you here?"
"To fight me again?" Cale shook his head. "No, I'm here because something approaches. Something dangerous. You may not realize it, but your duel was only the first step. The runes are awakening, and others will come to claim their power. I can help you if you choose to trust me." Lyra studied him carefully. She had seen his skill in the arena, had felt the weight of his presence, but now he seemed different. He was no longer just a challenger. He was offering guidance, warning her of a larger threat. "Why should I trust you?" she asked. Cale smiled faintly. "Because the universe is bigger than duels, bigger than fame. If you refuse, you may face what comes alone, and the runes will not protect you if your heart falters." Lyra considered his words. The runes had already shown her that strength alone was not enough. They responded to courage, clarity, and purpose. Perhaps Cale's guidance was necessary. "Then what do we do?" she asked, lowering her sword slightly but keeping her stance alert. Cale nodded. "We prepare. There are signals detected near Aurelia, ships of a species thought extinct. Their power is immense, capable of destroying entire cities. They will come for the runes, and they will not stop until they have claimed them." Lyra's breath caught. She had heard of the extinct species, known only in ancient records as the Valax. Legends told of their devastating technology and of planets reduced to dust by their fleets. To think they might return filled her with both fear and resolve. "Then we train," she said firmly. "We cannot let them reach the city." Over the next week, Lyra and Kale trained together. Kale's style was precise, efficient, and unpredictable. He taught her new ways to harness the runes, showing that their energy could create shields, enhance strikes, and even anticipate an opponent's movement. Lyra learned quickly, her bond with the sword deepening with every lesson. At first, their training was tense. Lyra distrusted Kale, questioning his motives and doubting his intentions. But slowly she saw that his experience was unmatched, his knowledge of the runes and combat invaluable. He pushed her limits, teaching her not just to fight, but to think, to anticipate, and to feel the flow of energy around her. One evening, while practicing on a deserted platform above the city, the runes on her sword glowed brighter than ever. A simple strike sent a ripple of energy across the platform, and Lyra realized she could control the intensity of the runes through focus alone. Kyle watched silently, a rare look of approval on his face. "You are ready for more than training now," he said. "You must understand the runes not only in combat but in strategy. Soon the Valax will arrive. The city will need more than swords. It will need leaders." Lyra felt a surge of determination. She was not just a fighter. She was becoming a protector, a guardian of something ancient and powerful. The runes had chosen her, and now she had a responsibility to understand their full potential. The night before the alien fleet was expected, Lyra stood on a high platform overlooking Zarathus. The city glowed below, peaceful and unaware of the storm approaching. Kale joined her, standing silently at her side. "They will come at dawn," he said. "Their ships are fast, their weapons destructive. But you have something they do not: courage and the power of the runes. Together we can protect this city." Lyra nodded. She looked at her sword, the runes pulsing gently in response to her heartbeat. She remembered the duel, the moment the blade had flashed against Kale, the first time she had felt its true power. Now that power was hers to command fully. "I am ready," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever comes, I will not falter." Kale placed a hand briefly on her shoulder, a gesture of trust. "Then let us prepare. The duel is over, but the real test begins tomorrow." The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the floating towers in shades of silver and gold. Lyra felt the hum of the runes grow stronger. It was not just energy. It was a connection, a promise that her courage and skill would guide her through the challenges ahead. And far beyond the city, across the silent expanse of space, shadowy shapes moved toward Aurelia. Ships of a species long thought extinct, engines glowing with deadly energy, approached without warning. The galaxy had begun its next chapter, and Lyra would be at its center, wielding the sword that pulsed with ancient power. The day after Lyra's training session, the city of Zarathus seemed quieter, almost too peaceful. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting golden reflections on the floating towers. Lyra walked through the streets, her sword secured on her back, the faint glow of the runes hidden beneath her armor. She could feel the hum of energy still alive in the blade, subtle but persistent, reminding her that the power within her weapon was not fully understood. She decided to return to the Library of Light. Knowledge had become her ally, as vital as her sword, and she needed to understand more. Kyle had trained her well in combat, but the runes had layers of power far beyond physical skill. If the Valax fleet approached as he warned, she would need every bit of understanding she could gather. The library was immense, a spiraling tower that touched the clouds. Floating orbs of light illuminated shelves filled with ancient star charts, holographic scrolls, and devices from civilizations long gone. Lyra approached the central holographic archivist, its form shifting and shimmering as it acknowledged her presence. "You return, Lyra of the Outer Colonies," it said. "Your connection to the Aranthian Forge grows stronger. What knowledge do you seek?" Lyra took a deep breath. "I need to know everything about the runes, their origin, their abilities, and how to control them fully. I cannot face what is coming if I do not understand their true power." The archivist scanned her, sending streams of light through the air. "The runes are more than energy. They are a living record of the Aranthian civilization, designed to respond to qualities that define true leadership: courage, clarity, and compassion. Each rune has a purpose, and together they form a network, capable of amplifying the wielder's intent beyond normal limits. Few have awakened them, and fewer still have understood them." Lyra's eyes widened. "So my sword. It is not just a weapon. It is a tool for guiding others?" "Correct," the archivist said. Its power is limited only by the wielder's understanding. The first stage awakens with skill, the second with courage under pressure. The final stage awakens when the wielder acts with selflessness and purpose, not merely for personal gain. Lyra nodded slowly, realizing the weight of what she carried. She had thought her goal was to win duels to gain honor. Now she understood that her role was far larger. She might be humanity's defender, the one who could turn the tide against threats beyond their comprehension. That evening, she met Kale atop a high observation deck overlooking the city. The air was cool, and the faint hum of her sword echoed softly as she held it. Kale's eyes scanned the horizon, his expression unreadable. "The Valax fleet is closer than we thought," he said quietly. "Sensors detect their energy signatures beyond the edge of our system. They are preparing, and they will not hesitate to strike." Lyra gripped her sword tightly. "Then we need more than training. We need to understand how to use the runes strategically, not just in combat." Kale nodded. "Exactly. The runes respond to intent, but they can also create fields of energy, amplify shields, and even disrupt enemy systems. You must learn to focus not just on striking, but on controlling the flow of energy around you." The Aranthians designed them to be adaptable, to respond to both mind and heart. For hours they practiced in silence, Lyra swinging her sword while concentrating on different aspects of the runes. At first, only small flashes of light responded to her efforts. But as she focused, aligning her intent with the purpose of each rune, the blade began to glow steadily. A faint energy field rippled outward, making the air shimmer with a soft golden light. Kale's eyes widened slightly. "You're progressing faster than I expected," he said. "Soon you will be able to project the rune's energy beyond the sword itself. You will be able to shield allies, disable enemies, and even influence machinery." Lyra felt a thrill. For years she had trained to wield a sword with precision. But now her skill was extending into something far greater. Her heart raced, not with fear but with determination. She could feel herself connected to something ancient, powerful, and alive. The next morning, Lyra decided to explore the city further, seeking hidden spaces where she could practice without interruption. She discovered an abandoned sector of Zarathus, long unused but intact, filled with ancient Aranthian devices and relics. Holographic projections flickered to life as she stepped closer, displaying images of warriors wielding swords similar to hers, their runes glowing as they protected cities from invaders. Lyra traced the patterns of the runes with her fingers, feeling a faint warmth under her touch. The more she focused, the brighter the sword glowed, as if responding to her curiosity and reverence. Each rune seemed to pulse in sequence, teaching her a rhythm, a flow, a way to channel the energy effectively. Kale arrived shortly after, his presence quiet but steady. "You are learning faster than most," he said. "But remember, understanding the runes is only part of it. You must also understand the people you protect. True power is not just skill, it is responsibility." Lyra nodded. "I understand. I feel the runes respond when my intent is pure. When I act for others, they shine brighter. If I act selfishly, they dim. I think I'm beginning to understand their purpose." Kyle smiled faintly. "Good. Soon you will need every lesson you've learned. The Valax will not come as simple foes. They are intelligent, strategic, and ruthless. They will test not just your strength, but your ability to inspire and lead." That night, Lyra could not sleep. She wandered to the highest tower of the city, gazing at the stars. The Valax fleet was approaching faster than expected. She felt the faint hum of the runes, almost like a heartbeat, reminding her of the responsibility she carried. Her sword had become more than a weapon. It was a symbol of hope, a bridge between the courage of humanity and the ancient power of the Aranthians. As she watched the stars, she remembered her duel with Kale. That moment had awakened the first stage of the rune's power, but she now knew that the real test lay ahead. The Valax would challenge her, and the runes would demand more than courage. They would demand wisdom, compassion, and selflessness. The next morning, Kale found her on the observation deck again. "It is time," he said. "They are here." Lyra turned, sword in hand, the runes glowing softly in anticipation. Beyond the horizon, shadows moved against the light of the twin suns, shapes of ships, massive and foreboding, engines pulsing with alien energy. The Valax had arrived. Kale's eyes met hers. "Remember what you've learned. Trust the sword, trust yourself, and trust the people you protect." This is more than a battle. It is a test of who you are and what you represent. Lyra nodded, her heart steady. She could feel the rune's energy flowing in response to her resolve. The sword was alive in her hands, a beacon of power and hope. She was ready to face the Valax, not just as a warrior, but as a guardian, a protector of humanity, and a wielder of the ancient Aranthian legacy. The first wave of enemy ships approached, their weapons glowing with destructive energy. Lyra's sword flared in response, golden light rippling outward. She raised it, the hum of the runes growing louder, a steady drumbeat of courage and purpose. Kale took his position beside her, his blade ready, a silent but formidable ally. As the Valax fleet descended upon Aurelia, Lyra felt the first true connection with the runes. They were not just tools for fighting. They were extensions of her intent, amplifying her courage, focus, and selflessness. Each strike, each movement, each decision she made resonated through the blade, sending pulses of energy that disrupted enemy ships and created protective fields around the city. The battle had begun. The runes were alive and Lyra was ready. She was no longer just a fighter from the outer colonies. She was the first of a new generation of warriors, chosen by the Aranthian legacy to defend the galaxy when it needed courage, wisdom, and heart the most. The first light of Aurelia's twin suns cut through the mist above Zarathus, painting the floating towers in soft shades of gold and silver. Lyra stood at the highest observation platform, her sword resting lightly in her hands, its runes pulsing steadily with a golden light. Kale was beside her, eyes scanning the horizon, every muscle tense and ready. The Valax fleet had arrived overnight, and now their ships moved like dark shadows against the light, engines glowing with deadly blue energy. Lyra took a deep breath. Her heart was steady, her mind focused. The runes in her sword resonated with the intensity of her resolve. She felt them like a heartbeat, responding to her courage and her intent to protect the city below. She had trained for this moment, learned the secrets of the runes, and now she would face her first true battle. "They are massive," Kyle said, his voice calm but serious. "But size is not everything. They rely on strength and intimidation, but they underestimate what courage and purpose can do." Lyra nodded. "Then we show them what that means." Below them, the citizens of Zarathus moved in organized evacuation formations. Energy shields hummed into place, floating drones patrolled the skies, and defensive turrets rose from hidden platforms. The city's defenses were prepared, but the Valax ships were unlike anything they had faced before. Their energy weapons could pierce most shields with ease, and their speed was unmatched. Lyra knew that brute force alone would not save the city. Strategy, courage, and the rune's power would be the key. The first wave of Valax ships descended with alarming speed, firing energy blasts that scorched the sky and lit up the city with flashes of blue light. Lyra raised her sword, focusing her intent on the runes. A pulse of energy erupted from the blade, forming a shimmering barrier in front of the city. The first wave of blasts struck it and scattered harmlessly, sparks dancing across the surface. Kale moved beside her, his sword slicing through the air with precision. He deflected smaller ships that attempted to breach the barrier, his blade leaving faint streaks of blue light. Lyra realized that the runes could not only shield but also strike back, releasing energy pulses that disrupted enemy machinery. Each swing of her sword sent out waves of controlled energy, forcing the Valax to retreat temporarily. The crowd watching from safe zones gasped and cheered, but Lyra did not let herself feel pride. This was only the beginning. The Valax were relentless, and their fleet stretched across the horizon like a living storm. As the battle continued, Kyle leaned close and spoke rapidly. "The runes can do more than just deflect attacks. Focus on linking them with your intent. Think about protection, not destruction. Energy will flow where your mind guides it. You can shield more than one area or strike multiple targets at once." Lyra closed her eyes, centering herself. She thought of the people below, the families, the children, the workers in the city who had no idea what was about to happen. Her intent focused not on winning the fight, but on keeping them safe. She felt the runes respond, pulsing faster, the golden light spreading along the blade and outward in waves. When she opened her eyes, the energy pulse expanded, creating a dome over multiple districts of the city. Incoming energy blasts from the Valax ships fizzled against the dome, unable to penetrate. Lyra swung her sword in arcs, directing energy to deflect smaller ships that had tried to bypass the dome. The runes glowed brighter with each controlled movement, feeding off her courage and focused intent. Kyle watched her silently, nodding. You're beginning to understand. The runes are not just protection. They amplify your mind and heart. The Valax commander, a massive ship larger than any other in the fleet, emerged from the shadows beyond the city. Its engines glowed fiercely and energy weapons formed in long rows along its hull. Kale's eyes narrowed. That is their leader. Direct attacks will not work. You must focus on strategy, on predicting their movements and using the runes to their fullest potential. Lyra nodded, feeling a thrill of determination. The commander's ship was fast but not impossible to anticipate. She began to synchronize the runes with her sword swings, her movements flowing with thought as well as muscle. Each pulse of energy seemed to reach beyond the sword, nudging the Valax ships slightly off course, disrupting their formations without destroying them outright. The battle became a dance. Lyra moved through the air with Kale at her side, her sword leaving streaks of golden light as it directed energy with precision. She felt a connection forming, not just with the runes but with the city itself. Each street, each tower, each defensive system seemed to respond to the flow of her intent. The Valax were powerful, but the combined strength of courage, strategy, and the ancient energy of the runes was proving stronger. But the commander's ship was clever. It adapted, targeting the weakest points in the city's defenses. Turrets fell silent, drones were destroyed, and citizens feared the destruction of everything they had known. Lyra felt the pressure, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She had trained for skill, she had learned strategy, but this was more. This was life or death for thousands. She raised her sword high, focusing every ounce of intent into the runes. A wave of golden energy radiated outward, striking the commander's ship. The massive vessel shuddered, its shields flickering, engines struggling to maintain formation. Lyra felt the runes respond like a heartbeat, echoing her courage and her desire to protect, amplifying her connection to the city and its people. Kale struck beside her, using his own knowledge of combat to target enemy ships attempting to flank the city. Together, they created a coordinated rhythm, a flow of energy and movement that disrupted the Valax fleet. For the first time, the commander's ship faltered, unable to maintain its offensive. As the battle raged, Lyra noticed something strange. Smaller ships, far from the main commander, seemed to hesitate as they approached the city. The runes in her sword were not just defending, they were influencing the minds of weaker enemies, forcing hesitation and confusion. She realized that the Aranthian energy responded not just to physical intent, but to the intent of protection and leadership, extending beyond herself. "This is incredible," Kyle shouted over the roar of the battle. "You're turning the tide without destroying them." The runes respond to heart as well as skill. Lyra felt a surge of hope. The Valax were formidable, but they had underestimated the power of courage, clarity, and leadership. She could see the energy of the runes spreading through the battlefield, guiding defensive systems, protecting civilians, and disrupting enemy coordination. The commander's ship made a final, desperate assault, firing a concentrated energy beam at the city center. Lyra focused, her mind steady, her heart clear. The runes flared brighter than ever, sending a pulse of golden energy that met the beam head-on. The collision created a shockwave, scattering enemy ships and shielding the city from destruction. The citizens of Zarathus watched in awe as Lyra moved through the air, directing energy with her sword, glowing streaks of golden light illuminating the battlefield. She was no longer just a warrior, she was a guardian, a beacon of hope, and the living embodiment of courage amplified by the ancient Aranthian runes. As the Valax retreated temporarily, Kale landed beside Lyra. "You have done what few could. You protected the city, disrupted their fleet, and maintained order. The runes are responding to your intent more strongly than I've ever seen." Lyra lowered her sword, breathing heavily but steady. "We've only held them off for now. They will return, and I need to understand the runes even more if we are to survive the next attack." Kyle nodded. "Tomorrow we focus on refinement. You must learn not just to defend, but to anticipate, to guide the flow of battle before it even begins. The Valax are clever, but your courage and the runes can be stronger than their fleet." The city began to recover, citizens emerging from shelters, drones repairing minor damage, and energy systems stabilizing. Lyra felt a quiet satisfaction, but also the weight of responsibility. The runes had chosen her for a purpose, and the purpose was clear: to protect, to lead, and to rise to challenges far beyond ordinary human skill. As night fell over Zarathus, Lyra stood on the observation platform again, looking at the stars beyond the floating towers. The Valax fleet was still out there, a shadow waiting for the next confrontation. She felt the hum of the runes in her sword, a comforting pulse that reminded her of her connection to something ancient, powerful, and alive. And deep in her mind, a single thought emerged: the real test was only beginning. The skies above Zarathus were alive with the hum of energy and the glow of the Aranthian runes. Lyra stood at the edge of the highest floating platform, her sword in hand, the golden light of its runes pulsing steadily, as if echoing her heartbeat. Below, the city buzzed with activity. Citizens evacuated to safe zones, drones patrolled the skies, and defensive turrets rose from hidden platforms. Every system was ready, but Lyra knew that the coming battle would test more than the city's defenses. It would test her courage, skill, and understanding of the runes. Kale joined her silently, his eyes scanning the horizon. "They have returned," he said. "The Valax commander leads the fleet. They are stronger, faster, and more determined than before. But so are you." Lyra nodded, feeling the familiar hum of the runes grow stronger. She had trained, learned, and refined her control over the energy. The Aranthian power was no longer just a tool. It was a part of her, guiding her intent and amplifying her courage. Today, it would be the difference between survival and destruction. The Valax commander's ship emerged from the void beyond the floating towers, its engines glowing with intense blue energy. Surrounding it were dozens of smaller ships moving in tight formation. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the runes respond to her focus. She lifted her sword, directing pulses of golden energy outward. Waves rippled through the air, creating shields over the city's key districts, protecting citizens and infrastructure alike. Kale moved to her side, slicing through the first wave of enemy ships with precise strikes, leaving streaks of blue light in their wake. Lyra followed, swinging her sword in arcs, sending out controlled energy pulses that disrupted enemy engines and navigation systems. The Valax fleet faltered slightly, confusion spreading through their formation as the runes responded to her intent to protect, rather than to attack. The battle had begun. The commander's ship fired its massive energy cannons, targeting the central hub of Zarathus. Lyra raised her sword, the runes flaring brightly. She extended her intent beyond herself, channeling protective energy to the city's shields. The beam struck the energy field, scattering harmlessly as golden light rippled across the city. Lyra felt the connection. The runes responded to her heart and mind, amplifying her intent with precision. Kyle shouted, cutting through the air, "Keep moving! The fleet will adapt quickly. Use the runes to anticipate their strikes, not just react to them." Lyra nodded, focusing on prediction rather than reaction. She observed the patterns of enemy movement, the rhythm of their attacks, and the timing of the commander's cannons. Slowly, she began to manipulate the flow of energy from her sword, redirecting incoming blasts, neutralizing attacks before they reached the city, and using pulses to push enemy ships off balance. The runes pulsed in response, their light intensifying, a living testament to her courage and intent. Lyra realized the full truth. The power of the Aranthian sword was not in strength or speed. It was in connection, in purpose, and in clarity of heart. The commander's ship unleashed a concentrated attack, a beam of energy wide enough to devastate multiple districts. Lyra's sword flared brilliantly, golden light expanding outward in a dome that covered the city. The beam struck the energy shield and splintered, harmlessly dispersing into the sky. The citizens watched in awe, realizing the blade itself was a protector, a force beyond ordinary technology. Kyle moved swiftly, disabling enemy ships that tried to flank the city. "The smaller ships will be forced to retreat if you keep this pace," he said, voice strained from effort. "Focus on the commander's ship next. Its power is enormous, but it is not invincible." Lyra's eyes narrowed. She felt the runes respond to her intent to strike decisively, but without unnecessary destruction. Her focus was on neutralization, not annihilation. She concentrated on the energy pulse of her sword, directing it with precision toward the commander's ship. Waves of golden light rippled outward, striking the vessel's hull. Sparks flew, engines faltered, and sections of the ship shuddered under the controlled force. The Valax commander hissed through their communication system, a strange resonance that Lyra could not fully interpret, but she could see the effect, hesitation. For the first time, the enemy fleet lost coordination. As smaller ships began to retreat, the commander made a final desperate move. Its engines blazed brighter, propelling the ship directly toward the city, its cannons charging for a massive strike. Lyra knew this was the ultimate test. She raised her sword, focusing every ounce of her intent on protection, courage, and clarity. The runes flared brighter than ever, golden energy extending in all directions. Lyra moved with precision, swinging her sword in arcs that sent waves of energy pulsing outward. The waves collided with the approaching ship's energy field, causing a resonance that destabilized its trajectory. Sparks and flashes lit the sky as the massive vessel faltered, unable to maintain its path. Kale landed beside her, breathing heavily. "You're doing it. The runes, they're responding to everything you are thinking and feeling." Lyra felt a surge of strength. She was no longer just defending. She was guiding the flow of the battle. Every movement of her sword, every pulse of the runes was shaping the outcome. The Valax commander's ship struggled against the energy, its systems overloaded by the precise control Lyra exerted. Finally, with one focused strike, she directed a concentrated pulse of golden energy at the core of the commander's ship. The hull shuddered, engines failed, and the massive vessel spun out of control. It collided with one of its smaller ships, sending a shockwave through the remaining fleet. The Valax ships, now leaderless and confused, retreated into the void from which they had come. The skies above Zarathus were quiet once more. The runes in Lyra's sword pulsed softly, responding to her calm, steady heartbeat. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, a rare smile crossing his face. "You've done it. The city is safe and the fleet is retreating. You have not just fought, you have led. The runes recognized your courage, clarity, and heart. You are ready." Lyra lowered her sword, breathing deeply, feeling both exhaustion and triumph. She had faced the most powerful threat in the galaxy, and her courage, skill, and understanding of the runes had turned the tide. The city below began to recover, citizens emerging from shelters to see the floating towers gleaming under the light of the twin suns. For the first time, Lyra realized something she had known deep down but had never fully embraced. The runes were alive, not merely with energy, but with purpose. They amplified not just strength but intent, heart, and the will to protect, and she had proven herself worthy. In the days following the battle, Lyra trained with Kale, refining her mastery of the runes. She explored new ways to use their energy, not just in combat but to protect, guide, and inspire. The city of Zarathus hailed her as a hero, but Lyra remained humble. She knew the runes were a tool of the Aranthian legacy, a power meant to serve humanity, not herself. Kyle, once a rival, had become a trusted ally. Together they prepared for future challenges, knowing that the galaxy held threats beyond imagination, and that courage and wisdom would always be needed. Lyra's sword, glowing with golden light, became a symbol of hope, a reminder that humanity's heart, when guided by courage and purpose, could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Lyra stood again on the observation platform, looking at the stars beyond the floating city. The Valax fleet was gone for now, but the galaxy stretched endlessly, filled with mysteries, challenges, and opportunities for heroes to rise. She felt the hum of the runes in her hands, a steady pulse that reminded her she was never alone, that she was part of something greater, something alive. The Aranthian sword had chosen her, not just for battle, but to protect, lead, and inspire. And Lyra knew deep in her heart that the story of humanity's courage was only beginning. She lifted her sword, the runes glowing brightly in the morning light. For the first time, she felt the full weight of her power and responsibility, and the full potential of humanity's courage. The stars awaited, and Lyra was ready. Princess Leora stood on the balcony of the palace, her eyes scanning the wide valley below. The sun had just begun to rise over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. Birds, or at least creatures that looked like birds, flew above the forests, their wings shimmering in bright colors. Leora inhaled deeply, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs. She always loved mornings like this, calm, peaceful, and full of promise. But calm was a rare thing these days. The human colony near her planet's northern edge had been expanding quickly. Humans and Nerans lived side by side, yet tensions sometimes flared, Some Nyrans did not trust humans, believing their ambition could bring danger. Leora, though fierce in battle and wise in counsel, always sought balance. She wanted peace, but she also wanted strength. Her human guard, Marcus, approached quietly. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a steady, confident walk. His eyes never left her, always alert, always protective. Marcus had been assigned to Leora years ago, when humans and Nyrans first made the alliance. He had earned her trust through courage and loyalty, and in return, she trusted him with her life, Princess, Marcus said softly. The patrols are ready. Leora turned to him, her dark hair catching the morning light. Good, have they checked the outer forest paths? They have, but I think we should go ourselves today, Marcus replied. His tone was calm, but his eyes hinted at concern. Leora smiled faintly. Always cautious, Marcus. That is why you are here. Together they walked toward the northern gates where the patrol squads waited. Leora's steps were confident, almost regal, but there was a softness in her movement too, a reminder that beneath the armor of a warrior, she was still young, still human in curiosity and care, despite being an alien princess. The patrol leader, a young Nyran named Talric, approached with urgency. Princess Leora, we've noticed some unusual energy readings near the edge of the forest. It could be nothing, but... He hesitated. Leora's eyes sharpened. Show me, she said. The small group followed the narrow paths into the forest. The trees were tall and twisted, their leaves glowing faintly under the sunlight. The air smelled of moss and minerals, and every sound, the rustling of leaves, the distant calls of strange creatures, made the hairs on Marcus's neck stand on end. Here, Talric said, stopping near a cluster of glowing rocks. This reading appeared 2 nights ago. It is unusual. Some kind of energy we cannot identify. Leora knelt down to examine the ground. She touched the soft moss, her fingers brushing over strange symbols etched into the stones. These are ancient markings, she said softly. Not dangerous, but curious. Someone has been here recently. Marcus crouched beside her, scanning the surroundings. It feels alive, he muttered. Like the forest itself is watching. Leora looked up, her dark eyes meeting his. Stay close, she said. She could sense the forest's energy shifting. Something was out of place, and instinct told her that it was bigger than it seemed. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared ahead. It was bright and fast, almost like a star had fallen to the ground. The patrol gasped, stepping back instinctively. Leora moved forward without hesitation, her hand on the hilt of her blade. Stay behind me, she commanded. But the light grew stronger, surrounding her completely. Marcus tried to reach her, but before he could take a step, the world seemed to tilt. The light pulsed brighter and brighter until it was almost painful to look at. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the light vanished. Leora was gone. Silence fell over the forest. The only sound was the wind rustling through the leaves. Princess, Marcus shouted, sprinting forward. Leora. Talric and the other patrol members scattered, searching desperately, but the forest was vast. There was no trace of her, no footprints, no signs of struggle, nothing. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Marcus dropped to his knees where she had stood. His heart pounded. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady his breathing. Leora would not disappear like this by accident. She was fierce, strong, and clever. Someone or something had taken her. The patrol regrouped, anxiety written across their faces. Talric spoke first. We should report this to the palace immediately. Maybe the council will know what to do. Marcus shook his head, rising to his full height. No, we cannot wait. If she is out there alone, she will be in danger. I will find her. Talric hesitated. Marcus, we cannot... I do not need permission, Marcus said firmly. I will bring her back. I promise. The group was silent. Marcus's determination was unshakable. He had spent years training with the princess, learning her ways, anticipating her actions. He knew the forest, the patterns of the land, and the instincts that guided Leora. If anyone could find her, it was him. He took a deep breath and began moving cautiously into the denser parts of the forest, Talric and a few trusted patrol members following behind. The sunlight dimmed as the trees thickened, and the glowing symbols on the rocks seemed to pulse faintly. Marcus's instincts told him they were close. Hours passed. They followed subtle signs, broken branches, faint impressions on the moss, small disturbances in the glowing plants. Every step seemed to take them deeper into a place that felt untouched by time. Princess Leora, Marcus called softly. trying not to alarm her if she was hiding. "It is Marcus, I am here." "Please respond." Only silence answered him. Night fell and the forest transformed. Strange creatures with luminous eyes watched from the shadows. The patrol's morale began to waver, but Marcus refused to give up. He set up a small camp, making sure the area was secure, and kept a constant watch. He thought back to the first day he met Leora. She had been training young warriors, her movements precise and commanding. Even then, Marcus had admired her courage. She had been fearless, refusing to bow to anyone, but she had a heart full of care for her people. He realized now that her disappearance was not just a threat to the colony, it was personal. He would not let anything happen to her. During the night, Marcus dreamed of Leora. She was standing in the light, smiling faintly, her hair flowing like waves. She reached out to him and he felt a warmth in his chest. When he woke, he was more determined than ever. He would follow her trail until the end of the world if he had to. As dawn approached, Marcus noticed something unusual, a faint shimmer in the air like a ripple in space. He approached cautiously. The shimmer grew brighter as he neared it. He paused, feeling a strange energy, familiar yet alien. It reminded him of Leora's presence, strong and alive. "This is it," he whispered. "She is close." He stepped forward, moving through the ripple. For a moment, everything seemed to fade, the trees, the ground, even time itself. Then he landed softly on a patch of glowing moss. The forest here was different, older, almost magical. Marcus scanned the area, heart racing. He could feel Leora's energy nearby. She was safe. He could sense it, even if he could not see her yet. "We will find you, Princess," Marcus said firmly, his voice carrying through the silent forest. "I swear it." Unknown to him, Leora was watching from a hidden place nearby. She had seen Marcus coming and allowed him to follow. She had vanished, not because she was afraid, but because she had sensed danger approaching the colony and needed time to prepare. The first step of a long journey had begun. Marcus did not know the full truth yet, but he would soon discover that the princess's disappearance was only the beginning of an adventure that would test courage, loyalty, and the bond between human and Niran. And somewhere in the shadows, the forest waited, full of secrets, watching the fierce princess and the human who would risk everything to bring her home.